So, welcome to another edition of the NCBI podcast. I'm June Tinsley, Head of Advocacy and Communications with NCBI. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Katie McGrath, who is not only a service user, but is an author and is happy to tell us all about her book and a little bit about herself too. So, welcome, Katie, and thank you for joining us.
And thank you for asking me to come on this podcast. I'm happy to share my story and hopefully help other people.
Brilliant, thank you. I suppose we may as well start at the beginning. Katie, if you want to just give our listeners just a little bit of information about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Katie. I live in Douglas and Cork. I have sight loss since 2015 when I actually had a brain tumour. I had a lot of treatment from the brain tumour, and I had sight loss because I had a cyst in my brain and it was pressing on my optic nerves, which caused damage. So I'm dealing with some new limitations. I'm aware I'm very fortunate that I still do have a lot of sight. I can still do a lot on my own, but there are a few limitations that I am still struggling with.
And in terms of the residual vision that you do have you been able to kind of maximize that to the best effect?
Definitely. And like I'm very independent, and I can go for walks on my own. I can get on the bus. Just the main thing that I can't do now that I loved doing was driving. But as I say, I know there's people out there who have lost more vision and have a lot less. They have more limitations. They can do a lot less. So I do try and stay positive and count my blessings. But I just really miss it. It's heartbreaking, to be honest.
I suppose that not being able to drive must feel as if your independence is compromised.
Definitely, and you just feel like you're relying on other people. And I know my husband Donal and my family and friends don't mind, but I do mind at times. It upsets me. And you just feel like, you're just dependent. You're reliable on other people. And at the moment, I am vaccinated, but with COVID, I can't. I just don't want to get on the bus and cause any kind of risk of contracting anything, even colds or flus. So I am very limited. And it's kind of like it's a daily struggle, to be honest. Like if I need to go somewhere to get something, I can't do it myself if it's further from where I can walk. So I'm just constantly dependent on people, and some days it really does get me down. And those days I have to remind myself of what I have as opposed to not have. And that does help.
Correct. But it's also kind of a human reaction to kind of have some bad days as well as good days.
Definitely, yeah.
And I suppose that's just all part of the journey that you're on. And I suppose, tell us, Katie, obviously, as you say, you acquired your sight loss as a result of the brain tumour, and that was quite a sudden thing. So literally waking up in a hospital bed with less vision than when you went in must have been a bit of a shock.
Yeah, it was. And it was kind of like the tumour itself was a shock as well, because my tumour is called Craniopharyngioma, and I've had it since birth, and I was 36 when when the first time I started getting excruciating headaches. And what would happen would be I would get distorted vision as well. It was like zigzag lines, and
Yes.
one of my feet would go numb as well, kind of a numbing kind of tingling sensation. So
Yes.
At the start, I wasn't getting the headaches every day. They were very sporadic. So I didn't take huge notice of them at the start because I'd started a new job, and I thought maybe it's just stress related. But I got a particularly bad one the last week of May in 2015, where I felt sick and I felt faint. And my husband took me to South Dock because it was the evening time. And and I can't fault them because all my symptoms can be just a bad migraine. They just diagnosed it as a bad migraine. So they gave me pain medication, anti-nausea medication. They told me to take the next day off work and see how I felt then about going back to work. So I went back to work on the Wednesday, and the Wednesday and Thursday, the pain was still there. And for some reason, it got worse when I came home from work in the evening. And Thursday evening, it was the most excruciating. I was crying with the pain. And I kind of said to my husband, I have to do something about this, as in go back to my own doctor or, get further investigation into it.
Yes.
So I went into work on Friday, and just because you're looking for answers in every direction, I went and made an appointment for an eye test, just in case it was eye strain.
Yes.
And I couldn't have the eye test that day, so I came back to work. And I left work, and I was the last person to leave work. And before I drove my car, I was working, say, about 3 or 4 miles from where I live. And I kind of said a prayer before I drove my car home, because I knew I wasn't well, and I knew I needed a bit of spiritual help just to get me home safely. So I got home, and I was feeling very unwell. I felt like I was going to get sick. So I went to the bathroom, and after that, I actually don't remember. But what happened then was I woke up, and I was on the hallway tiles. And my husband wasn't there. He was gone to his usual Friday spinning class. So I was just so lucky that I actually did wake up. And I was also very lucky I didn't hit my head, because our downstairs toilet is very small.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so I got up anyway off the floor, and I can remember my speech being slurred. It was like, like I just wasn't corpus mentis at all. And I said, again, please God, please help me. So I got up, and I went into the front room, and I looked out the window, and I thought I was hallucinating, because I saw Donald, my husband, come in the drive. And I said, he never misses a spin class. I must be, just seeing this. But he
Yeah.
came in anyway. He'd forgotten his runners. It was, somebody was
Blessing.
looking out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he said he'd ring South Dock. In hindsight now, we both know we should have just rang an ambulance, but we just weren't sure what to do. It was just
Naturally. Yes. Yes.
panic. Yeah. So while he was on the phone to South Dock, I started thinking, what did I do that day? Did I go to work? What did I do? I couldn't remember what I'd done. And when I think about it, I was very lucky not to have passed out behind the wheel when I was driving home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've heard other people, go through worse situations. So I was just very lucky. So he took me to South Dock, and I felt sick again. I went to the bathroom, and I didn't come back. And again, I don't remember much of South Dock. But he came looking for me because he knew it was unusual and it was dangerous. And he called out for me, and I was just making gurgling, moaning sounds. So he managed to open the door, even though it was locked. He had to kind of burst open the door, and I was after passing out and vomiting. So he called a doctor straight away, and the doctor said, okay, she needs to go to CUH.
Yes.
Thankfully, where South Dock was, there was also an ambulance bay in the same estate, in the same industrial estate. So, and it's quite close to CUH. So as soon as I got to CUH, they did a CT scan. And what they could see from the CT scan was that there was fluid in the brain, and there was some kind of black mass. They couldn't totally diagnose until they did an MRI. But
Correct.
they said we need to drain the fluid anyway tonight. And again, I remember very little. And Donald said they gave me morphine, and I was still screaming with the pain. Like I do remember screaming with the pain, but even that alone is shocking. So I had the drainage operation that night, and I woke the next morning, and my first thought was that just a bad dream? And then I was interrupted by noises around the room, the hustle and bustle of a busy hospital,
Yeah. Yes.
beepers going off, nurses running around. A nurse came over to me, a very kind nurse, and she explained to me what had happened the night before, because I wasn't really sure. And she said, look, you'll be sent for an MRI today, and then they'll determine what to do.
Yes.
So I was sent for an MRI, and I'd never been for an MRI before. And if if anyone's been for a brain MRI, it's quite disconcerting. You're on a scanner type thing, and it goes into a tunnel, and then they place a kind of a brace over your head just to keep you in place. And when you're feeling unwell and then you're put in that area, it was quite claustrophobic, and I felt quite compacted. And then they actually gave me a panic button. And I was like, why do I need a panic button? And why is it called a panic button? And then I realized when I was laying down inside it that people do tend to panic because it's confined space, and it can be.
And it's totally unsettling where you are. Yeah, exactly.
It is definitely, and so I'd never had one. I didn't even know what to expect, and they gave me earplugs then because of the loud banging noises that they have to use to get the images. And the only thing I could do is my husband's into drum and bass music and dance music with a lot of beats, so I started converting the songs I was hearing from the MRI machine into one of his songs, and it was the only thing. It was a distraction, and that's what you need in a situation like that. And
True.
yeah, you use anything you can, like, so 25 minutes later, and it seemed like about an hour, they were finished. They stopped the MRI 20 minutes in to put in a contrast or dye, which again highlights certain areas of the brain. I got back to the HDU ward, and Donal was there, which was great. It was nice to see a familiar face. He'd gone home just to have a shower and freshen up. And then the surgeon, the neurosurgeon, came along, and he gave us some bad news that it was a tumour. It didn't look like a cancerous tumour. He titled it Craniopharyngioma, which is a tumour I've had since I was born.
And it's just grown and grown and grown. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if it's grown, but some people can go through their whole lives and it just remains dormant. I won't bother them. Some people are affected as children, and it's a very kind of rare type of tumor. There's only 3 or 4 cases in Southern Ireland a year, and he obviously said what was happening was that not only was there a tumor, there was a cyst attached, and it was the cyst that was filling up with fluid and causing the massive pressure and headaches and discomfort I was getting, and the distorted vision, because the tumor and the cyst was pressing on the optic nerves.
Yes.
So it was a lot of information, and it was very shocking, and you just don't think something like that would ever happen to you. It was a nightmare situation. You're actually thinking, am I having a bad dream?
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it was truly horrific. Like, so when the neurosurgeon left, I obviously started crying, but then my sister Maria came along. She came in to visit me, my niece Denise, and Maria's a nurse, and she was able to calm us down, because I couldn't understand why the surgeon said it'll take us 5 hours to do the operation, a craniotomy. And I just thought, why does it have to take them 5 hours? What will they be doing for 5? Just the worst thoughts be going through your head.
Naturally,
And
yes.
yeah, she managed to calm us down and say, look, it'll take that long because they have to be very gentle and precise and take their time, and so what we decided to do, we made sure it was okay with the staff. There's a famous kind of chip shop in Cork called Lennox, and we asked them if we could get Lennox just as a takeaway. It was kind of like, something to cheer me up.
Yeah, a sense of normality in a world gone mad.
Yeah, exactly. So we got the Lennox, and I was very emotional that night. Donal was the last one to leave, and I was petrified. I really did not know, and it was my own fear whether I'd survive the operation. I practically, told him everything, how much he meant to me. We'd only been married a few years. We'd been together a while, but we'd only been married, and I just said how much he meant to me and how much I cherished our time together, and everything you don't want to say at 36. Do you know what I mean? But I was just so afraid.
Understandably, in fairness. And I mean, I suppose, thankfully, you've kind of got through that horrific period just at that time, and the extensive recovery that followed. So did that spur you on to write your book, Heads or Tails?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I was kind of so detailed in the story. So the operation went well. However, in September, my vision started getting blurry. Before it was distorted, this time it was blurry. So they had to do another craniotomy in September 2015.
Oh God.
Yeah, and this time they put a shunt in or a reservoir so that if it happened again that the cyst filled up with fluid. See, what had happened is there was a tiny bit of the tumour and cyst they couldn't remove the first time because it was attached to the hypothalamus and it was too dangerous. But they were just hoping it wouldn't cause me any harm. A lot of the time it doesn't when you've removed most of it. But unfortunately, it did cause me harm. And when they had to operate again, so they did another craniotomy. And what fascinated me was the morning after the craniotomy, the best way to check your vision is to pick up your mobile phone and read a text. And
Yes.
my vision was perfect again. I just couldn't, it was just fascinating, how powerful surgery can be. And, they saved my life and, they rectified my vision. And, it was just amazing what they can do. And so in October, that was September and October, they were going to start radiotherapy, but before they could start it, my vision got blurry again. And
Okay.
this time I thought in my own head, and they thought that because I had the shunt, they could do an aspiration from the outside. So just kind of withdraw fluid with a needle. They wouldn't have to go and do an invasive operation. But they tried to do several aspirations, but it wasn't draining enough fluid. So they knew something was wrong. And they did another MRI, and the cyst had resprouted, but it wasn't aligned with the shunt. So they said, okay, you definitely need radiotherapy, but you also need another operation. We
Oh
can't,
God, love you.
yeah, they said we can't do another craniotomy because with radiotherapy, your head would be too exposed and it would just be too dangerous, straight after having a craniotomy. And so you'll
Yeah,
have
from
to
a
go
recovery point of view, exactly.
yeah, so they said you'll have to go to Beaumont in Dublin. I'm living in Cork, and you'll have to get an endonasal endoscopy, which is a brain operation up your nose, basically.
Yes.
Which, to be honest, I didn't mind, that I was going to Dublin. I just wanted it to be rectified. So I was waiting a little while to get into Beaumont because at the time there was the well-publicised bedding crisis in 2015.
Yes.
I did get in, but during that time, my vision was very blurry the whole time. Now, I can't blame Beaumont or anyone else because it was just the situation. They did get me in as soon as I could, but I was very, very worried about my vision. It was just blurry the whole day for a week, that kind of way. It was scary.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I got in for the operation and I had to leave a bandage on the nose for a few days afterwards in the hospital. And then I was allowed home and I did radiotherapy over Christmas and the New Year. And I was in recovery and I was doing one of my last radiotherapy sessions and my eyesight got blurry again. And again, they were saying this is very unusual. So they did another MRI and the cyst had gotten inflamed or it had expanded because of the radiotherapy, which again is highly unusual. So
Oh
they
God.
yeah, it was a nightmare. I actually thought, is this just a bad dream and I'm going to wake up, you know? So I'll keep this short anyway. But so they put me on dexamethasone for a month, and which is a highly potent steroid. And they said that with the radiotherapy should help, just reduce the size of the cyst and it'll eventually go away. And
Yes.
thankfully, I got an MRI a few weeks later and it had
Oh,
gone
good.
away again. Yeah. So my recovery really started then, and the eye condition I have was diagnosed as I hope I'm pronouncing this right, harmonious hemianopia.
That's correct. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So what that is for people that might know is you lose peripheral vision. So you either lose it to the left or the right hand side of your eye, but you lose it in both eyes. So I've lost peripheral vision in both eyes. But again, as I said, I'm very fortunate that I still have a lot of vision, that I can still do a lot on my own.
And I suppose just for our listeners, that condition is quite prevalent amongst individuals who suffer a stroke as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose NCBI would offer tips and guidance and training in relation to kind of encouraging people to use their residual vision for maximum effect, and kind of be able to scan the room or scan the environment you're in, to be able to detect obstacles or furniture or anything like that, to make sure that an individual can still navigate about safely. And did you receive any of that kind of support from NCBI?
I did. I spoke to Marcella. She's the community resource worker in the Cork office. I met with her and she gave me some very valuable advice about being vigilant. And she did this very good exercise with me. She walked me down a corridor and on each side of the wall there was letters of the alphabet, and she
Yes.
told me to name them out when I saw them when I was walking down. And obviously the first time I did it, I didn't see as many, but with my kind of increased observation, I was able to see a lot more, and it actually made a lot of sense what why we were doing that. As in, I was my vigilance was way up after that. Like I find if I'm out in a crowded area and somebody comes, like a person I don't know comes to me from the left, they can just dart past me because I don't even see them approach me. So
Correct.
sometimes I'd actually jump with a fright. And
Well, understandably, I mean, the individual is literally come upon you without you anticipating it.
yeah, and like I unfortunately had a very bad accident at home in 2016. And my husband suffers from back pain, and he had a bad episode, and he was actually laying on the floor in one room, and I was in the kitchen, and I was, I was going in to help him with something, and obviously it's not his fault. But again, it was to do with my peripheral vision. I was kind of rushing around, and I didn't see a foam roller on the floor that it was to my left of my peripheral. I tripped
Yes.
over a foam roller, and I fell out on my hands and face. Thankfully, we had a mat on the timber floor, but I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't, like, it just didn't come to me at the time why I couldn't breathe. And my husband heard the thud and got up off the floor from the other room and came in. He turned me over very calmly and he said, "You winded yourself." But not only had I winded myself, I had to go to BHI Swiftcare, and they did X-rays, and I fractured both my elbows and my wrist.
Oh, yuck! Yes, yes, yes.
So that really increased my observation skills as well. Just really always looking to the left. Like Aoife, an occupational therapist in Cork from NCBI, came to my house. Marcella suggested her, and I was happy for her to come to my house. And she pointed out certain areas that would be hard for me to see with my condition. And she said to highlight these areas, even with tape or, different colored rug, the floor. If the floor is the same color as the rug, make the rug a different color. Just make things as easy as possible for yourself. And
Correct.
yeah, like, and it's unusual because I have to take steroids and thyroid medication every day, and I have them in a kind of a translucent pill box. And I had the pill box up one day on a surface that also was kind of white in color, and I could not see the pill box. It was after like camouflaging into the surface. It took me a while like it was there, but it took me a while to see it. Or I have a black wallet. Now I've had to put a kind of a sticker on the wallet because when I put my wallet into my handbag, the inside of my handbag is black, and sometimes it takes me a while to find it. So it's just small things like that. You just help yourself as much as you can.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose it literally just takes time and practice and to use the skills that you've been taught by Marcella or others, to try and maximize your own independence and ability to live. And I suppose, tell us, Katie, about the book. What drove you to write the book, Heads or Tails?
Yeah, so my book is called Heads or Tails. There's a bit of a pun in the title. It's like what I'm trying to portray is my life changed like the flipping of a coin, and
Correct.
tails in the title is spelled TALES, because what I'm saying is this isn't fiction, this is a true story, it's not a tale. And just how fast, because my life just changed dramatically overnight. You know, I just didn't see it coming. And so I speak very honestly in the book. I speak about everything I went through, all my feelings, all my thoughts. I talk about the importance of counselling, and I had fantastic counselling sessions with Jane Bird, and she's an NCBI Dublin, phone sessions with her. She was fantastic. I talk about, you know, minding your mind and mental health, because
Yes.
when you're going through an illness, I felt very isolated, very alone, and very few people, especially of my age, have had a brain tumor like I've had. So I actually felt compelled to write the book, just to share my story and let people know you're not alone, and you can find hope. There's a lot of people who can help you. There's a lot of organizations, including obviously NCBI, who really helped me. And so I just wanted to share my story and let people know that you can get through a really hard battle if you are battling with something, and it doesn't have to be as severe as what I went through. But everyone has their own battle, and I just wanted to show that. And by helping each other, we can get through anything.
True. And I suppose it is literally sharing that story for other people's benefit as well, just to kind of make them realize that they're not alone, and that support is available within their own family and community and networks, and organizations like NCBI and others are there to lend support, either practically or emotionally, or in whatever way is required.
Yeah, and definitely.
Tell us, Katie, is your book published, and where can one find it?
Yeah, it's published. It's available on Amazon, and it's also available on Waterstone Books. On Amazon, it's also available in a Kindle version. So I'm trying to, I'm in the process of trying to advertise it as much as I can. And I am going to approach smaller bookshops as well to see if I can maybe get a few copies in it first, and see how it goes from there, as in if people are interested in it. Obviously, I'm happy to do interviews about the book, because I really feel I can help people, and I end the book on a very positive note. And I think that's important when you're going through something that you think, how am I going to get out of this? You can, like anyone can get out of anything. Like, for example, I gained a lot of weight when I was unwell, because, you know, I was unwell, and I was kind of like, you know, I wasn't able to exercise, and just the naughty but nice food was giving me comfort.
Yep.
But I realized then I needed to lose it for my health and everything else. And I started going to Slimming World, and like with my brain tumor, my hypothalamus has also been kind of compromised. So it was even harder for me, because I'm constantly thinking about food. It's just because the hypothalamus has been affected.
Yes.
I'm practically obsessed with food. So with Slimming World, and just learning to distract myself when I think about food too much, I've nearly lost 4 stone now.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
great.
So I just want to convey that, like, even if it's, you know, you want to lose weight, it doesn't have to be Slimming World. It can be another group. I found them very good, but I was told it would be extremely hard for me to lose weight, because I'm on steroids as well every day. So I'm just showing that anything is possible, really, when you put your mind to it.
And I suppose, Katie, how I end all the podcasts is to ask the same question, and you've alluded to a little bit of it already. But is there any one piece of advice that you would have for others who've been recently diagnosed with a sight loss?
I would say explain it to your family and friends at first in full. Explain your limitations. Explain how you're feeling about it, so that they can understand and help you a bit more. Sometimes people just don't understand what you can and can't do. So by explaining it and explaining your anxieties and that you need help, you know, just communicating, and to your friends as well, and also seeking advice. I think counselling is fantastic. When you have sight loss, and as I said, I'm very fortunate, I still have a lot of sight, a lot of vision, and you go through a grieving process, and I think counselling talking that out is very good. And NCBI has counselling services as well as you can get help with, there's occupational therapy, there's advice on, as we were saying, scanning techniques. It was one of the best decisions I ever made, contacting NCBI. They gave me a huge amount of help. So I'd like to thank you.
Well, delighted to help. And I suppose just for our listeners, if anyone is interested in availing of our services, the best way to contact us is through the info line 1850 33 43 53. But for now, Katie, can I just say a huge thank you for being so open and honest about the difficult years that you've had with the as a result of the brain tumour and the subsequent vision loss. Best of luck with the book, and I hope it is not only a good use of your time, but also for individuals to be able to learn from you and take comfort from the fact that, as you rightly say, anything is possible when you put your mind to it. And best of luck with everything.
Thank you, and I'm happy to share my story. And I have my own website as well if people just want to find out more information about the book. It's all lowercase, katiemcgrath.com. HTTPS is at the start of it, and it just gives you all the information about my book. And I'm happy to share my story, and I'm glad you've asked me to share it.
Great. Thanks very much, Katie.
Okay, thanks, June. Have a good day.